Prehistoric genius was not always about grand rituals. We are about to explore 25 everyday artifacts that reveal a startling truth. Our ancestors were practical geniuses. This journey will completely transform how you see human intelligence in the ancient world. You will discover the clever minds behind simple stone tools and domestic objects, proving that survival itself was an act of brilliance. How did a simple hand axe become a multi-purpose masterpiece? What can a tiny fishhook tell us about prehistoric engineering? By the end, you will see these early people not as primitive mystics, but as the original inventors and problem solvers. Their legacy is hidden in plain sight, waiting to be understood. What does true ingenuity look like when survival is the only goal? For a long time, the story of our ancestors was written in shadows and mystery. We were taught to see them through a lens of superstition, a people huddled around fires, performing elaborate rituals for unseen forces. This image is so deeply ingrained that for decades, almost any artifact that seemed unusual or out of place was quickly labeled as ceremonial. An object that did not have an immediate, obvious purpose to a modern archaeologist was often dismissed as a ritual item, a sacred trinket for a shaman. This interpretation says more about our own cultural baggage than it does about the past. It created a convenient but misleading category for anything we did not understand, a box where practical genius went to be forgotten. But the tide is turning. With new scientific tools like microscopic wear analysis, we can now read the stories etched into stone and bone. We can see the polish from cutting plants, the striations from scraping hides, the tiny impact fractures from working wood. These are not the marks of ceremony. They are the fingerprints of daily labor, the undeniable evidence of tools being used to solve real-world problems. This shift in perspective is revolutionary. It allows us to strip away the layers of mystical assumption and meet our ancestors on their own terms, not as primitive priests, but as the ultimate engineers of their own survival. This distinction is the key that unlocks a new understanding of the past. When we say an artifact is ritual-free, we are not stripping it of all meaning. Instead, we are focusing on its primary reason for existence. These were objects made for the relentless demands of daily life. Their purpose was to secure food, to build shelter, to create clothing, and to process materials. The wear on their surfaces tells a story of repeated, practical use. They were the ancient equivalent of a chef's favorite knife or a carpenter's most reliable hammer, tools that were indispensable not for their symbolism, but for their sheer utility in keeping a community alive. Yet within that utility lies a deep and often overlooked intelligence. Everyday genius is not about a lone inventor creating something miraculous. It is the collective, accumulated wisdom of a people. It is the subtle improvement in the way a stone is flaked to make it fit more comfortably in the hand, reducing fatigue during hours of work. It is the knowledge of which type of wood makes the strongest spear shaft, or which plant fibers can be twisted into the most durable cord. This genius was passed from parent to child, from one generation to the next, refined through endless trial and error. It was a shared intellect embedded in the ordinary that transformed sheer survival into a life of greater ease and security. This is the quiet, practical brilliance we are about to uncover piece by piece. Over 1 million years ago, an early human held a cobble and struck it with precise force. Each calculated blow detached a flake, gradually revealing a teardrop shape that fit perfectly in the palm. This was the birth of the Acheulean hand axe, a tool so successful its design persisted for nearly 1 million years. Its longevity is almost unimaginable in our fast-paced world. Found from Africa to Europe to Asia, this was not some rare ceremonial object. It was the bedrock of daily survival, a piece of standardized technology that crossed continents and countless generations. Its symmetrical, bifacial form is the first clue to its genius. That elegant teardrop was not for show. It was a masterpiece of ergonomics, balanced to reduce hand strain during hours of use. But its true brilliance lies in its sheer versatility. One tool served a dozen vital functions. Its sharp edge could cleanly butcher a large animal, separating meat from bone. Turn it over, and the same edge could scrape a hide clean for clothing or shelter. The sturdy tip was ideal for digging up nutritious tubers and roots from hard soil. And when smaller, finer cutting tools were needed, the hand axe itself acted as a core, its own material carefully flaked away to create a new set of sharp implements. This was the original multi-tool, the Swiss Army knife of the deep past. Creating such an object required a profound cognitive leap. The maker had to look at a raw, unshaped stone and see the finished tool hidden within. This is a form of abstract thinking. It required an intuitive understanding of fracture mechanics, knowing exactly where and how to strike the stone to control its breakage. The consistency of this design across vast distances and time tells us this knowledge was not innate. It was carefully taught, learned, practiced, and perfected. This was transmitted collective intelligence in its purest form. The Acheulean hand axe stands as a silent, stubborn monument not to ritual, but to relentless, everyday problem-solving. That same capacity for practical invention can be found in a tool far more delicate than a stone axe. A sharpened piece of bone, meticulously shaped to a fine point, represents a leap in human ingenuity just as profound. This is the bone awl. Picture the scene not as a grand ceremony, but as a moment of quiet, focused work. Inside a shelter, perhaps with only the glow of a fire for light, a craftsperson presses the sharp tip of this tool against a tough animal hide. With a firm, twisting motion, it punches a clean hole. This simple action, repeated thousands of times, was the foundation of survival in a changing world. The bone awl was the key that unlocked the technology of sewing. Before its invention, clothing would have been little more than draped furs or rough wraps. But with this tool, hides could be pieced together. They could be joined with sinew or plant fibers to create fitted garments, sturdy footwear, and more resilient shelters. This was not about fashion. It was a matter of life and death, enabling our ancestors to retain body heat and venture into colder, harsher environments. The genius of the awl lies in its material intelligence. Its creators understood that bone could be worked to a sharp, strong point that was less likely to snap than a thin sliver of stone. It was a durable, reusable solution to the very specific problem of joining materials. This simple tool transformed a fundamental aspect of human existence. It provided insulation against the cold, protection from the elements, and the freedom of movement necessary to hunt and gather effectively. The bone awl facilitated a quiet revolution in personal comfort and safety, a testament to an intellect focused on solving the most pressing challenges of everyday life. The rhythmic sound of stone on stone was the heartbeat of a new kind of intelligence. Long before the first fields were sown, people were transforming their world with grinding stones and pestles. This was not a task of ceremony, but of daily sustenance. Imagine a large, slightly concave slab of durable rock, its surface worn smooth by years of use. Beside it, a smaller handheld stone, the pestle, used to crush and pulverize wild grains, nuts, and seeds with a steady, rocking motion. This simple setup represents a revolution in how humans interacted with their food. Many of the most abundant plant resources in nature are protected by tough, indigestible outer shells. A handful of wild barley or a cache of acorns is virtually inedible in its raw state. The genius of the grinding stone was the understanding that mechanical force could solve this problem. By crushing these hard seeds, our ancestors unlocked the calories and nutrients trapped inside, transforming a potential toxin into a nutritious meal. This was food processing in its most fundamental form. The intelligence required for this technology was deeply practical. It began with the selection of the right materials. Not just any rock would do. The ideal grinding stone was made from a specific type of durable, coarse-grained rock like sandstone or basalt. Its rough texture provided a natural abrasive surface that ground materials efficiently. The user had to develop a specific, repetitive technique, a skilled motion that maximized force while minimizing effort over long periods. This was labor-intensive, but the payoff was immense. It provided a reliable, storable food source that increased dietary breadth and bolstered food security against times of scarcity. This proactive approach to resource management was a purely practical form of genius. It demonstrated a deep ecological knowledge and a forward-thinking mindset. By mastering the process of turning inedible plants into staple foods, these early communities were taking a fundamental step away from a purely nomadic existence. The grinding stone, more than any ritual object, paved the way for the settled life that would eventually follow, all through the simple, powerful act of making a meal. A sliver of bone, meticulously carved into a subtle curve, changed humanity's relationship with the water. This was no simple pointed stick. The prehistoric fishhook was a triumph of targeted design, a tiny object born from a deep and intimate understanding of both material and prey. Its creation was a slow, deliberate process. A craftsperson would select a specific bone, perhaps from a deer or a large bird, knowing it had the right combination of density and flexibility. Using a sharp stone flake, they would patiently grind and scrape the bone into shape, not just a curve, but often a sharp point reinforced with a tiny, backward-facing barb. That barb was the stroke of genius. It was the feature that transformed a hopeful nibble into a secured meal, preventing a hooked fish from twisting free. This was engineering on a microscopic scale, all for a single, vital purpose: to reliably harvest protein from rivers, lakes, and shorelines. The intelligence here is profoundly ecological. The maker had to understand fish behavior, knowing where they lurked and what they would be tempted to bite. This knowledge turned a vast, watery landscape into a predictable, sustainable pantry. While a hand axe was a generalist, the fishhook was a specialist. It represented a strategic decision to diversify the diet, to add a rich, reliable source of food that did not require the immense risk and energy expenditure of hunting large game. A single, well-made hook could feed a family, its small size belying its enormous impact on community health and resilience. This was not about ritual. It was about a quiet, clever, and persistent effort to tap into one of nature's most abundant resources, a testament to an intellect that looked at a flowing river and saw a solution. A length of twisted plant fiber might seem insignificant next to a stone axe, but its invention was a quiet revolution in applied physics. This was rope, humanity's first truly flexible tool. The challenge was simple and brutal. How do you move a heavy kill back to camp or keep a shelter's hide covering from being torn away by a storm? The solution was anything but simple. It began with an intimate knowledge of the local environment, which plants, like nettles or certain inner barks, possessed long, tough fibers that could be patiently extracted. Which animal sinews offered incredible strength. But knowledge alone was not enough. The true genius was in the technique. By twisting two bundles of fibers together in opposite directions, our ancestors discovered they created a cord that was exponentially stronger. This process, called reverse twisting, counteracts the natural tendency of the fibers to unravel, distributing any pulling force evenly across the entire length. This was the birth of tensile strength. It was material science discovered through endless experimentation. With this durable, pliable cordage, the possibilities exploded. They could lash wooden poles together to create sturdy frames for shelters, a far cry from precarious lean toss. They could weave nets to catch fish in staggering quantities or snare small game while they attended to other tasks. They could bind logs together to form rafts, opening up rivers and coastlines as new highways for exploration and trade. A simple rope was no longer just a tool, it was a force multiplier. It allowed a small group to achieve what was once impossible for an individual, showcasing a profound understanding that complexity and strength could emerge from the clever combination of simple, available things. A tiny fragment of clay, no larger than a thumbnail, can hold the ghost of a meal eaten thousands of years ago. This is the story told by a simple pottery sherd, its inner surface stained with the chemical residue of ancient foods. The invention of fired clay pots was not born from a desire for artistic expression, but from a relentless pursuit of a better meal. Imagine the leap of understanding required to take wet clay, shape it, and subject it to the heat of a fire, transforming its very nature into something durable and waterproof. The genius of the first potters was not merely in this chemical transformation, but in their immediate grasp of its profound practical applications. A clay pot was a revolutionary kitchen appliance. It introduced the power of slow, controlled boiling. Tough, fibrous roots and lean, stringy meats that were difficult to chew and digest could now be simmered for hours, breaking down into tender, nutritious, and safe-to-eat sustenance. This process of boiling would have also made water safer to drink by killing harmful pathogens, a silent public health revolution happening around the communal fire. But the pot's utility extended far beyond the single meal. It became a storage vessel, a way to preserve seasonal surpluses of berries, grains, or fish oil for the lean months ahead. This ability to create a larder changed the rhythm of daily life, reducing the constant, desperate pressure to find food each and every day. A single pot enabled the creation of rich, communal stews that could efficiently feed an entire group from one central source, strengthening social bonds and allowing for the care of the very young and the very old. This humble artifact represents a conscious, deliberate effort to master the food environment. It is a clear sign of an intellect focused on improving health, saving labor, and building a more resilient and connected community, one shared meal at a time. A small piece of bone marked with a series of deliberate cuts carries the echo of a thought that changed everything. This is the notched tally stick, an artifact so simple it is easy to overlook, yet it represents a revolution in the human mind. These were not random scratches. Each groove was a deliberate record, a way of storing information outside of the fragile human memory. The everyday genius here was the creation of an external hard drive made of wood or bone. Someone realized that complex information, like the passing of lunar cycles or the count of animal hides for trade, could be translated into a physical code. This was a monumental cognitive leap. It was the birth of abstract data. The maker was no longer trapped in the immediate present, relying solely on what they could see and remember in the moment. They could now plan for a future migration by tracking the phases of the moon, marking each night with a new notch until the time was right to move. They could manage an early economy, using the sticks to ensure a fair count of goods being exchanged, moving beyond simple barter into the realm of quantified value. This was a system for transmitting knowledge across time, allowing one person to leave a message for another or for their future self. The tally stick is the humble, practical origin of both mathematics and written records. It was not born from ceremony, but from the relentless need to manage the complexities of a growing community, to bring order to the world through the power of a single, repeated mark. A tiny, polished stone bead seems to hold a whisper of the person who wore it. This small object, with its perfectly drilled hole, is often found in ancient sites, a delicate counterpoint to the heavy-hand axes and grinding stones. It is tempting to place it in the realm of the sacred, to call it a ritual object, but the more profound story is likely far more human. This bead was a tool for social survival. In a world without written language, personal adornment was a powerful and practical language. A necklace of such beads could instantly communicate who you were, which group you belonged to, or what status you held. It was a silent signal of identity, a way to build trust and recognition within a community and when encountering others. The genius here is a form of social intelligence, the understanding that objects could be used to manage complex human relationships. Yet the bead's creation reveals a different kind of brilliance, a technical mastery that borders on the obsessive. Drilling a clean hole through a hard stone like steatite or shell is an immense challenge. The maker likely used a simple bow drill, a tool made of a wooden shaft, a cord, and a sharp stone or bone point. The process required unwavering patience. They would have added abrasive sand and water, then sawed the bow back and forth for hours, perhaps days, maintaining perfect pressure and alignment. This was not a hurried act. It was a demonstration of incredible fine motor control and a deep, intuitive understanding of abrasive techniques. Each successful bead was a testament to perseverance and skill, a tiny, wearable masterpiece of engineering. This fusion of social craft and material craft is what makes the bead so significant. It was not mere vanity. It was a practical application of immense skill to navigate the social landscape, strengthening the bonds that held people together and signaling critical information in a silent, elegant, and enduring way. The transition from stone on stone to a softer impact marked a pivotal moment in tool making. An antler tine, repurposed into a hammer, unlocked a new level of precision for the flint knapper. This was not a crude pounding tool. It was an instrument of finesse. The genius of the Antler Hammer lies in its unique material properties. Unlike a hard stone hammer, Antler is tough but possesses a slight, yielding flexibility. When struck against the edge of a flint core, this flexibility creates a longer, more controlled shock wave. The result is the removal of a long, thin, and razor-sharp flake, something a stone hammer would simply shatter. This was the difference between rough shaping and true refinement. It allowed for the creation of elegant, symmetrical blades and projectile points with incredibly sharp, durable edges. This innovation required a deep, almost intuitive knowledge of materials science. The toolmaker had to understand that different tasks demanded different tools, and that organic and inorganic materials interacted in distinct, predictable ways. They knew that a freshly shed deer antler, with its ideal moisture content and resilience, was the perfect candidate. They would carefully select a tine, often shaping its tip through use to maintain the perfect striking surface. This was not a single act of creation, but a system. The Antler Hammer was part of a sophisticated toolkit, each item with a specialized role in the chain of production. It represents a mind that could see the entire process, from raw material to finished weapon, and optimize every step along the way. This was practical genius in its purest form, using the right material for the right job to achieve a superior result, a principle that still drives innovation today. A fragment of a woven basket feels impossibly delicate in the hand. a whisper of reeds and grasses preserved by chance. This was not a decorative object, but a fundamental reinvention of what a hand could carry. Before the basket, foraging was a limited endeavor, a matter of what you could hold in your cupped hands or carry in a fold of hide. The invention of basketry was a logistical revolution. It solved a simple but profound problem: how to gather more than you could immediately eat. With a lightweight, sturdy basket slung over an arm, a forager could systematically harvest an entire patch of ripe berries or collect a season's worth of nuts without constant trips back to camp. This was efficiency born of pure necessity. The genius of the basket is woven into its very structure. It required an intimate knowledge of materials, knowing which reeds were flexible yet strong, which grasses could be twisted into durable cordage. The weaver had to hold a complex pattern in their mind, an understanding of over and under, of warp and weft, to create a container that was both flexible and structurally sound. This was a form of early engineering, applying tension and compression in a way that produced a vessel far stronger than its individual parts. A basket could carry sharp stone tools without tearing, cradle fragile bird eggs without breaking, and hold precious water if lined with clay or pitch. It was the original container, the direct ancestor of the clay pot, the wooden chest, and the modern shipping container. This technology enabled the accumulation of resources, the first step toward a life less dominated by the immediate, desperate search for food. It was a practical, portable solution to the everyday challenge of moving through the world with your livelihood securely in hand. A simple groove carved around a stone axe head transformed a hand-held tool into a force of nature. This was not just a better way to cut, it was a fundamental reinvention of power itself. By carving a precise channel around a ground stone head and lashing it securely to a strong wooden handle, early humans created the world's first composite tool. This was the grooved stone axe, and its invention was an act of pure systems thinking. The genius was in the combination. A stone alone was heavy and awkward to swing. A wooden handle alone was just a stick, but bound together they created a lever, multiplying the force of a human arm into a devastating, controlled impact. This new mechanical advantage changed everything. A task that once required hours of laborious chopping with a hand axe, like felling a small tree, could now be accomplished with powerful, efficient swings. The grooved axe head did not slip, it held fast, transferring all of its energy directly into the wood. This was engineering in its most practical form, an understanding that the whole could be exponentially greater than the sum of its parts. Creating such a tool was a multi-stage process that demanded foresight and skill. It began with selecting the right type of stone, one that was tough enough to hold a sharp edge but could be ground and polished. Then came the patient work of shaping the head and carving that critical groove, a feature whose only purpose was to interface perfectly with another component. The wooden haft had to be carved from a strong, resilient branch, shaped to fit the human hand. Finally, everything was bound together with expertly made cordage, perhaps sinew or plant fiber, pulled taut in a specific pattern to resist the tremendous forces of impact. This was not a single invention, but a suite of interconnected technologies brought together for a single, powerful purpose. The impact of this tool on daily life was profound. It allowed for the deliberate clearing of land, making way for the first semi-permanent settlements. It enabled the construction of substantial wooden dwellings and fences, offering real protection from the elements and predators. It unlocked advanced woodworking, leading to the creation of sledges, containers, and other implements that eased the burdens of daily life. The grooved axe head was more than a tool. It was a builder of worlds, a direct physical manifestation of an intellect that could see a future shaped by wood and stone, and then make it real. The bone needle with an eye was a whisper of a revolution. It took the fundamental concept of the awl and refined it with a single, brilliant addition, a tiny, meticulously drilled hole. This was no longer just a tool for punching, it was a tool for pulling. The difference was profound, and awl created a hole you then had to manually thread, a slow and often clumsy process. But a needle, with its thread securely anchored in the eye, could be pushed and pulled in a continuous, fluid motion. This allowed for complex, overlapping stitches that locked pieces of hide or fabric together, creating seams that were not just joined, but sealed against the wind and weather. Creating such a tool was an act of immense patience and precision. A craftsperson would start with a sliver of bone or a piece of mammoth ivory, grinding it for hours against an abrasive stone to achieve a slender, smooth shaft. Then came the true test of skill, drilling the eye. Using a fine, sharp stone point, perhaps spun with a bow drill, they would have worked with painstaking care, applying just the right pressure to bore a clean hole without splitting the delicate material. This was not a task for a heavy hand, it was a feat of micro-engineering. The payoff for this immense investment of time was nothing less than survival itself. With an eyed needle, clothing could be truly tailored. It could be fitted to the body, eliminating drafts and conserving precious body heat. Multiple layers could be sewn together, creating insulated garments that made life possible in the bitter cold of Ice Age Europe. This was not about fashion, it was about thermal efficiency. A well-sewn parka with a snug hood meant the difference between life and death during a long winter. This artifact represents a clear leap in foresight, the understanding that a significant upfront investment in a better tool would yield exponential returns in long-term comfort, mobility, and the very viability of a community in a challenging world. It was the ultimate refinement of a simple idea, transforming basic protection into an engineered defense against the elements. Darkness was once an absolute barrier, a time of vulnerability and lost hours. Then someone carved a shallow depression into a piece of sandstone and poured in a pool of rendered animal fat. This simple stone lamp was a rebellion against the night. Its flickering flame, fed by a simple moss or twisted fiber wick, did more than push back the shadows. It extended the very definition of a productive day. Imagine the profound shift this represented. After the sun vanished, the world no longer had to sleep. In the secure glow of this small, contained fire, hands could continue their work. A toolmaker could patiently pressure flake a new spear point by the steady light. An elder could share stories, strengthening the bonds of memory and tradition. An artist could trace the first lines of a charcoal drawing on a cave wall. This was not about ceremony, it was about reclaiming time itself. The genius of the stone lamp lies in its elegant application of basic principles. It required a deep, practical understanding of combustion, knowing that animal fat would provide a slow, steady burn. It demanded the insight to contain that burn safely within a non-flammable stone bowl, preventing accidental fires in a dry grass shelter. This was environmental control on a personal scale. By harnessing a readily available resource, often the waste fat from a successful hunt, our ancestors transformed their own daily rhythm. Light meant safety from nocturnal predators prowling just beyond the camp. It meant the ability to plan for the next day's hunt, repairing gear by the fire. It allowed for the quiet, focused conversations that forge complex social structures. This humble lamp was a catalyst for cultural accumulation, providing the literal illumination for the slow, steady work of building a smarter, more connected world, one extra hour at a time. A smoothed animal rib bone feels almost alive in the hand, its natural curve shaped by use into a simple, effective spatula. This was not a tool of ceremony, but a testament to an economy of motion and material. After a successful hunt, when the prime cuts of meat were consumed, nothing was truly considered waste. Someone looked at this leftover rib, a byproduct of a meal, and saw not refuse but a ready-made tool. Its flat, slightly flexible shape was perfect for a dozen unglamorous but essential tasks. It could be used to spread a layer of insulating clay onto a shelter's wall, smoothing it to a hard, weatherproof finish. In the process of preparing a hide, its blunt edge was ideal for scraping away the last bits of fat and tissue without cutting the delicate skin. It might even have been used to portion out cooked food from a communal pot, a simple serving utensil that kept hands clean and ensured fair shares. The genius here is one of perception. It is the ability to see potential utility in the most ordinary of objects. This reflects a deeply ingrained principle of zero waste, a mindset where every part of an animal, from its meat and bones to its sinew and hide, was assigned a purpose. A tool kit built from such repurposed items was both efficient and lightweight. There was no need to quarry new stone or spend hours grinding a new tool when a perfectly suitable implement could be crafted from a material already at hand. This is practical intelligence at its most fundamental, a quiet, relentless optimization of the environment that turned every byproduct into a new beginning. A flat, water-worn stone with a perfectly drilled hole seems unremarkable until you hold it in your hand and feel its purpose. Tied to the edge of a woven net, this perforated sinker stone would pull the mesh downward, creating a vertical curtain in the water to entangle fish. This was not a random pebble. It was a carefully chosen component in a system of capture, a tool born from watching how objects behave in a moving current. The genius here is an intuitive grasp of physics, a practical understanding of buoyancy and drag. A net with no weight would simply float on the surface, useless for catching anything below. But a net with these stones strategically attached would sink to the precise depth where the fish were schooling, its walls billowing out to maximize the area of capture. This simple modification turned a passive trap into an active, efficient hunting technology. The effort required to create just one of these sinkers was significant. Drilling through hard stone with primitive tools was a slow, painstaking process. The fact that our ancestors invested this labor, creating not just one but many of these stones, speaks volumes. They were performing a clear cost-benefit analysis, a form of prehistoric economics. The hours spent drilling were an upfront investment guaranteed to pay off in a heavier, more reliable catch. This object is a quiet testament to an experimental mindset. It shows a people who are not just reacting to their environment, but actively testing it, tweaking their tools, and refining their techniques based on observation. They saw a problem, the inefficiency of a floating net, and engineered a simple, elegant, and utterly effective solution using the materials at hand. A small clay bison, shaped by ancient hands, fits perfectly in a child's palm. Its crudely formed horns and sturdy bulk are instantly recognizable, a miniature portrait of a creature vital to survival. We often assume such objects held a sacred purpose, but their true role may have been far more down to earth. This figurine could have been the world's first textbook, a durable teaching aid crafted for a critical lesson. An adult could use this three-dimensional model to demonstrate a bison's behavior, showing a child how it lowers its head to charge or turns to protect its flank. They could press the small clay hoof into the dirt to explain tracking, illustrating the difference between a deep, heavy print and the light mark of a deer. This was not play in the casual sense, it was immersive, practical education. The material itself was a stroke of genius. Clay was readily available, easy to shape, and when dried or lightly fired, it became a sturdy object that could withstand being handled, dropped, and passed around. It transformed abstract descriptions of a dangerous, massive animal into a concrete, tactile reality a child could safely hold and understand. This was pedagogical technology in its purest form. The knowledge of how to approach a herd, where to aim a spear, and how to read the wind direction was the community's most valuable asset. By encoding this life and death information into a simple, engaging object, elders ensured that essential skills were transferred effectively to the next generation. This quiet act of molding clay was an investment in collective memory and future security, turning a lump of earth into a tool for sustaining the entire community. 17th artifact, the Flint Microblade. A single microblade is a sliver of stone so small it could be lost in a fold of your hand, yet its edge is sharper than any modern surgical steel. This was not a tool in itself, but a component, a disposable cutting edge designed for a larger system. During the later Paleolithic, toolmakers achieved a new level of precision, mastering a technique called pressure flaking. Instead of striking a core, they would press against its edge with a hard, pointed tool, often made of antler, peeling off these incredibly thin, uniform blades with exquisite control. The real breakthrough, however, was how they were used. A craftsperson would carve a series of straight, precise slots into a handle made of bone, wood, or antler. Then they would carefully set a row of these microblades into the slots, securing them with sticky tree resin or sinew. The result was a composite tool, like an early sickle for harvesting wild grasses or a knife with a serrated, razor-sharp edge that could slice through hide and meat with incredible efficiency. This was modular design, a concept we associate with modern engineering. The everyday genius here is a profound shift in thinking about maintenance and resource management. Instead of discarding a whole tool when its edge became dull or spending hours resharpening it, you had a renewable system. When one microblade in the handle lost its edge, you simply popped it out and slotted in a fresh one. This was a brilliant conservation strategy for high-quality flint, a material that was not always easy to find. It maximized every ounce of precious stone, turning a single core into a factory for dozens of replaceable blades. This systematic approach reveals a mind that was not just solving an immediate problem, but planning for future needs, building efficiency and resilience directly into the very fabric of daily life. While the axe was built for raw power, its cousin the adze was designed for a different kind of force. With its blade set parallel to the handle like a hoe, this tool was not for felling trees, but for shaping them with incredible control. The polished adze was the specialist, the master carver of the ancient world. Its unique angle allowed a craftsperson to stand over a log and pull the sharp stone blade toward their body, shaving off long, thin curls of wood with each precise stroke. This was the instrument that hollowed out massive tree trunks, transforming them into the first dug-out canoes. It shaped the timbers for sturdy longhouses and smoothed the planks for raised storage platforms. It carved the bowls, ladles, and other wooden artifacts that made daily life more comfortable and efficient. This was not a general-purpose tool. It was an implement of creation, dedicated to the high-skill task of woodworking. The creation of the adze blade itself was a monumental act of patience. To shape a piece of incredibly hard stone like jadeite or basalt, the maker would spend countless hours grinding it against a coarse sandstone slab with water and abrasive sand. This was a slow, deliberate process, gradually wearing the stone down into its desired form before moving to a finer stone to achieve a high polish. This final polish was not for beauty, it was pure function. A polished surface met less resistance as it cut through wood, making the tool more efficient and reducing the effort required for the user. The resulting edge was also stronger and more durable than a flaked one, able to withstand the repeated impacts of hardwoods without chipping. This immense investment of time signals a profound shift in society. It suggests the emergence of expert craftspeople, individuals who dedicated themselves to mastering a specific, difficult skill. Not everyone in the community would have had the time, resources, or patience to produce such a refined tool. This points toward a division of labor where some hunted, some gathered, and some became the premier woodworkers, their valued expertise essential for building the infrastructure of a more settled life. The Adze represents a move beyond mere survival toward a life shaped by skilled craftsmanship and long-term planning. The Quernstone transformed the simple act of grinding into a powerful engine for civilization. Unlike the portable grinding slab used for a variety of seeds and nuts, the quern was a dedicated, heavy-duty appliance. It consisted of two parts, a large, immobile base stone with a slightly concave surface, and a smaller, handheld upper stone called a handstone. The user would pour grain into the shallow basin and then rock the handstone back and forth with a grinding, circular motion. This design was a monumental leap in mechanical efficiency. The weight of the handstone, combined with the curved, enclosing surface of the base, created a crushing and shearing action that pulverized grain into a fine, consistent flour far more quickly than any earlier method. The practical genius here is in the optimization of a daily, labor-intensive chore. It reduced the time and physical effort needed to feed a family, freeing up precious hours for other essential tasks. But its impact went far beyond saving labor. This technology fundamentally altered the relationship with food. Fine flour could be mixed with water and baked into nutritious bread, a staple that was easily transported and shared. More importantly, flour was a stable, storable food reserve. Raw grain could sprout, rot, or be devoured by pests, but flour, kept in a dry container, represented security. It was a buffer against famine, a way to turn a season of plenty into a guarantee against future scarcity. This reliable food source is what made larger, permanent villages possible. People could now stay in one place, knowing they had processed and stored enough food to last through the winter. The Quernstone, therefore, was not merely a kitchen tool. It was the quiet, grinding heartbeat of the first agricultural communities, a direct manifestation of an intellect focused on building a stable, settled future from the raw materials of the earth. A single hollow bird bone drilled with precise holes could produce a clear, piercing note that carried across a quiet landscape. This was the bone whistle, an artifact that speaks to a need far beyond the physical. While it might have been used for simple signaling during a hunt, its true genius likely resonated in the social heart of the community. After a long day of arduous labor, the sound of a melody, however simple, provided a release. It was a tool for mental and emotional sustenance. Music, in its most elemental form, has a unique power to synchronize a group, to dissolve individual tensions and forge a collective spirit. A shared song around the evening fire did more than just pass the time. It reinforced the bonds that held people together, turning a collection of individuals into a cohesive, resilient unit. The creation of this instrument reveals a sophisticated understanding of physics that was entirely practical. The maker had to select a bone of the right size and thickness, intuitively grasping how its hollow cavity would act as a resonant chamber. Each finger hole was not randomly placed. It was carefully positioned to alter the column of air inside, changing the pitch in a predictable way. This required experimentation and a refined ear, an ability to hear the potential for music within a silent piece of anatomy. This was applied acoustics, a manipulation of natural materials to produce controlled, structured sound. The bone whistle stands as powerful evidence that practical intelligence was never just about food and shelter. It was also about nurturing the human spirit, about using skill and observation to fulfill the profound social and psychological needs that are just as critical for survival as a sharp spear or a warm hide. This simple instrument reminds us that even in the deepest past, life was about more than just enduring. It was about finding moments of shared joy and connection. A simple strip of leather cut and cured from a single hide was a greater force for invention than we might ever guess. This was the leather thong, the original multi-purpose fastener that held the ancient world together. Found only in the rarest of preservation conditions, these unassuming straps were the prehistoric equivalent of duct tape and rope combined, a fundamental technology woven into the fabric of daily survival. Its creation was anything but simple. The process began with the careful skinning of an animal, a task requiring precision to avoid puncturing the valuable hide. Then came the laborious scraping, removing every bit of flesh and fat with a stone scraper to prevent rot. The final, critical step was curing, a chemical transformation achieved by smoking the hide over a specific type of wood or by soaking it in a solution rich in natural tannins from tree bark. This knowledge was not accidental. It was a complex inherited science passed down through generations to transform a perishable skin into a durable, flexible, and incredibly strong material. The genius of the leather thong lies in its pure, unadulterated utility. It solved 1,000 small but critical problems without fanfare. A strip could be used to lash a stone axe head securely to its wooden handle, creating a composite tool of immense power. Several thongs could be woven together to form a carrying net or a simple backpack, freeing the hands for other tasks while transporting goods. It could repair a torn piece of clothing, secure a shelter's hide covering against a storm, or even serve as a temporary cordage for setting a snare. This was the foundational level of all technology, the humble component upon which more complex systems relied. Its existence speaks to a mindset that valued adaptable, reusable solutions, a quiet testament to the immense power of a simple, effective idea. The ability to summon fire from stone is the ultimate declaration of independence from the whims of nature. A fire-making kit was not just a collection of objects, it was a portable power source. At its heart were two specific minerals, a lump of iron pyrite, often called fool's gold for its metallic luster, and a hard piece of flint. The genius was in recognizing their unique chemical relationship. When struck together with a glancing blow, the sharp edge of the flint would shave a microscopic sliver off the pyrite. The force of this impact instantly heated the iron, shaving to a white-hot temperature, sending a shower of brilliant sparks flying toward a waiting bundle of prepared tinder. This tinder was the third critical component, often made from charred cloth, a specific type of dry, fluffy fungus or treated tree bark. This material was engineered to be incredibly flammable, catching the faintest spark and smoldering until it could be gently blown into a flame. This entire process was controlled, replicable chemistry. It was a technology built on a profound understanding of material properties and combustion physics. To carry a fire-making kit was to carry security. It meant you could bring the comfort of warmth to a cold campsite, transforming a damp, chilling cave into a dry haven. Its light pushed back the deepest darkness, creating a circle of safety that deterred curious predators. The fire it created could boil water, making it safe to drink, and cook tough meat and fibrous plants, unlocking nutrients otherwise locked away. Perhaps most importantly, the fire it created became the social heart of the community, the place where stories were shared, plans were made, and bonds were strengthened through the shared warmth. This simple kit gave humanity a measure of control over their environment that was nothing short of revolutionary, turning a terrifying force of nature into a dependable, daily tool. This chemical transformation began with the simple act of gathering limestone. Someone discovered that by heating these common stones in a carefully managed fire, reaching temperatures high enough to alter their very composition, they could produce a caustic powder known as quicklime. This substance was then carefully slaked with water, creating a hot, bubbling paste that could be smoothed into a floor. Left to cure, this mixture underwent another change, slowly absorbing carbon dioxide from the air to harden back into a solid, stone-like surface. This entire sequence was a mastered chemical reaction, an early form of materials science practiced thousands of years before the formal laboratory. The benefits of this innovation were profoundly practical, transforming the daily experience of home. A plaster floor was a clean, level surface that could be easily swept free of debris and pests. It resisted moisture and the burrowing of insects, creating a more hygienic and comfortable living space for a family. This was a deliberate effort to control the immediate environment, to bring order and sanitation into the very center of domestic life. This invention speaks to a powerful shift in priorities. The immense labor and technical knowledge required to produce even a small plaster floor signals that comfort and cleanliness were now recognized as worthy investments. This was not about mere survival, but about cultivating a better quality of life, about creating a space that was not just a shelter from the elements, but a true home. Driving wooden stakes deep into a riverbed was an act of profound confidence in the future. These are the remains of a fishing weir, a submerged fence that transformed a flowing river into a managed, productive landscape. This was not a small tool held in one hand, but a massive, permanent piece of community infrastructure. Its construction required the coordinated effort of many people, a shared labor directed by a single, strategic vision. They had to know exactly where the fish would travel, understanding their seasonal migration patterns with an intimacy we can barely grasp today. They needed a working knowledge of hydrology, placing the V-shaped barrier in just the right spot where the current would naturally funnel the fish into the waiting enclosure, not fight against it. This was large-scale environmental engineering, a deliberate and intelligent modification of the world to serve human need. The everyday genius here is collective and deeply strategic. It represents a shift from simply taking what nature offered to partnering with its rhythms. The weir did not deplete the river, it harvested from it sustainably, allowing a predictable and abundant catch season after season. This was long-term planning made visible, a testament to a community that could envision a secure tomorrow and then work together to build it with their own hands, stake by patient stake, weaving their collective intellect directly into the fabric of the river itself. A single seashell, found hundreds of miles from the nearest coast, carries the ghost of a vast and ancient conversation. This perforated shell bead, whether its whole was a gift from the waves or carved by a patient hand, is far more than a simple trinket. It is a fossilized handshake, a tangible piece of a social network that spanned continents. For these beads to appear so far inland, they had to travel, passing from one group to the next through chains of trade and reciprocal gift-giving. This was the birth of a primitive economy built not on coins but on shared value. The genius here is in the creation of a perfect social tool. A shell bead was lightweight, easy to transport over vast distances. It was durable, surviving the journey intact, and crucially, it was universally desirable, a small piece of exotic beauty that held appeal for everyone. This desirability gave it power. It could be offered to cement an alliance between neighboring bands, a physical promise of friendship and mutual support. It could be exchanged for a vital resource that one group possessed and another needed, like a high-quality flint or a rare pigment. In this way, the bead acted as an early form of currency, a standardized store of value that facilitated trade far beyond simple barter. But its impact was even greater than economics. These circulating beads were the arteries of the prehistoric world, carrying more than just objects. They carried information. With each bead that changed hands, news traveled. Stories of distant lands, new hunting techniques, or strange animal behaviors could flow along these social routes. This exchange of knowledge reduced the terrifying isolation of the ancient world, allowing innovations to spread and take root. Perhaps most importantly, these networks enabled the flow of people. Beads facilitated the intermingling of once separate populations, allowing for the exchange of genes that strengthened the biological resilience of our species. This was a practical, brilliant system for building a wider world. It transformed humanity from isolated clusters into a connected, collaborative web, all through the quiet, persistent journey of a tiny, beautiful shell. The true legacy of these 25 artifacts is not a list of inventions, but a single, brilliant pattern of thought. This was a universal intelligence, not confined to one genius but shared across continents and millennia, relentlessly focused on the here and now. It was an applied science, an intuitive engineering, a practical sociology all woven into the fabric of staying alive. Every object we have explored speaks to this core principle, a mind that looked at a problem and reached for a solution made from stone, bone, or fiber. This intellect thrived on observation. It learned from the way a fish swam against the current, inspiring the weir. It understood the physics of a lever from the swing of a branch, leading to the grooved axe. It discovered chemistry in the heat of a fire, transforming clay into pottery and limestone into plaster. This was not magic, it was meticulous trial and error experimentation, with each success and failure carefully remembered and passed down. The result was a cultural toolkit of breathtaking adaptability. The same human mind that devised the bone needle to survive the Ice Age also created the grinding stone to thrive in arid grasslands. This practical genius was the engine that powered our colonization of the planet, turning every challenge of climate and geography into a problem that could be solved with enough observation, enough patience, and enough shared knowledge. While we often search for the origins of civilization in grand monuments and sacred texts, this evidence suggests the real foundation was far more humble. It was the accumulated, incremental improvement of everyday things, the quiet work of countless hands and minds building a safer, more comfortable, and more connected world, one practical solution at a time. The true legacy of these artifacts is not a list of inventions, but a single, brilliant pattern of thought. This was a universal intelligence, not confined to one genius but shared across continents and millennia, relentlessly focused on the here and now. It was an applied science, an intuitive engineering, a practical sociology all woven into the fabric of staying alive. Every object we have explored speaks to this core principle, a mind that looked at a problem and reached for a solution made from stone, bone, or fiber. This intellect thrived on observation. It learned from the way a fish swam against the current, inspiring the weir. It understood the physics of a lever from the swing of a branch, leading to the grooved axe. It discovered chemistry in the heat of a fire, transforming clay into pottery and limestone into plaster. This was not magic, it was meticulous trial and error experimentation, with each success and failure carefully remembered and passed down. The result was a cultural toolkit of breathtaking adaptability. The same human mind that devised the bone needle to survive the Ice Age also created the grinding stone to thrive in arid grasslands. This practical genius was the engine that powered our colonization of the planet, turning every challenge of climate and geography into a problem that could be solved with enough observation, enough patience, and enough shared knowledge. While we often search for the origins of civilization in grand monuments and sacred texts, this evidence suggests the real foundation was far more humble. It was the accumulated, incremental improvement of everyday things, the quiet work of countless hands and minds building a safer, more comfortable, and more connected world, one practical solution at a time. Our ancestors were, in every meaningful sense, the original engineers and chemists, the first social planners and material scientists. Their titles were simply hunter, gatherer, and craftsperson, but their work shaped the future. By seeing their tools not as ritual objects but as solutions, we meet them with a deeper, more honest respect. We recognize their intellect not as something alien or primitive, but as the very same spark of problem-solving that we use to navigate our own complex world. This legacy of everyday genius is the bedrock of human history. If this journey into prehistoric ingenuity has sparked your curiosity, we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And subscribe for more explorations into the hidden intellect of the past.